Welcome to Unorthodoxy, the podcast where we question the rules, roles, and narratives we've been handed about healing, identity, and what it actually means to be human. I'm Chelsea, a therapist working at the intersection of evidence-based psychology and Eastern medicine, with a functional approach to mental health and healing.
And I am the Reverend Dr. Sheldon Steen, a pastor and Bible scholar with over 20 years experience in ministry, a PhD in religion, 5 kids, tattoos, and a brewery, because faith belongs in real life.
That's right. So here we hold the space for nuance, the psychological, the emotional, and the spiritual, without pretending there's a one-size-fits-all path to healing.
This isn't about quick fixes or perfect answers. It's about honest conversation, lived experience, and making room for complexity.
So if you've ever felt like you didn't quite fit into the boxes that you were given, you're in the right place.
That's right. So let's get into it. And I want to start off today by just offering a warning that I'm kind of sick today. So
I know, and you're powering through.
I know. I'm going to be a little extra sniffly. I'm going to try to mute myself when I cough. I have a very different background because I'm visiting a friend. So
Yes.
all sorts of things are different for me today, but I will apologize in advance for my sniffly sounds.
Yes. So today we actually have quite the interesting topic, right? Boundaries are actually being weaponized. So I just kind of want to, I guess, clarify too. Like, we're not encouraging people to stay in abusive or unsafe situations at all. Today's topic, I think, is about the misuse of boundaries, really, right? Because I think we've reached a point where the word boundary is being used to justify almost anything, right? So as a therapist, I think that can be a problem. Healthy boundaries are essential, but lately I've been seeing boundaries used as weapons instead of tools. And so I guess, Sheldon, have you seen this, whether it be in your pastoral counseling, or I know you've been doing like some camps, but have you seen this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, I think there's like a broader phenomenon in which on the one hand, there has been a lessening of stigma around things like therapy and, medication even. And there still is some stigma out there for sure, but it's very different than it was, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. And so along with that, there's just this kind of wider comfort, or at least exposure to what I would just think of as therapy speak, right? And then that therapy speak that is not always fully understood, that is kind of the social media version of it.
Yes.
Kind of becomes this colloquial way that people start communicating. And it's you can see there's a germ of the right idea there. But because a lot of us are still getting that information maybe from social media or other pop culture, rather than actually in therapy with someone to guide us through these things and how these things work in real life and through our lived experience, then we get a caricatured version that I think exactly what you're pointing to can actually do more harm than good, both for ourselves and for the people around us.
Right. It becomes this shield,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm protecting my peace is inauthentic. I think that there is some truth to that, but I think sometimes sometimes it's a way to avoid that accountability. It's a way to kind of avoid repair, or even just those uncomfortable conversations. We can kind of trick ourselves into, but I'm holding a boundary. I'm protecting my peace. But are you?
Right. Right. Yeah. And are you protecting your peace? And is it, because again, I mean, I think it's really important to say, if we're talking about issues of actual safety, of course, there's no question there, right? There's get out of that situation and feel good about it. Great. But we can often use that language even of safety in places where it doesn't really make sense, where we're actually talking about an unwillingness to be uncomfortable. And I think there is a need for discomfort always, for us to be able to grow, for us to experience the world differently, for us to be able to heal. We've talked about this several times already, that healing only comes through discomfort. Now, again, I also want to say, it's very easy for me to say as a person whose identity is in the majority of every single category, right? So I think I am called to more places of discomfort maybe than other people are. There are some people who, there are certain situations that are going to be perfectly safe for me, but won't be perfectly safe for other people, for, people of different identities. So all of that is true, right? There is no simple, give up the boundaries or whatever. There's no simple way to just offer a one size fits all.
No, but I
But
do think that there's like a good filter. Like, so I
yeah.
think part of it is also learning what boundaries are, right? Because boundaries are about your behavior, not controlling someone else's behavior, right? Like it's more about what you're doing and how you're showing up in the interaction. It's not a request. So, for example, like if you yell at me, I'll end the conversation, not you're not allowed to raise your voice at me, you know? And so it's very different. And then that being said, too, like boundaries should increase clarity, right? Not confusion. So it's really clear, like, I'm going to end this if you raise it. Like, that's not confusing. That's not the silent treatment. That's not ghosting. That's not punishment. And so I think also, too, like making sure that it's clear. And so I think there are some filters, you know. So is this boundary coming from self-respect or self-protection? Is it creating safety or distance? Is it an invitation to a healthier relationship or a way to win? Right. So, like, I think that there are some ways to check yourself before you wreck yourself, like, but check yourself. Right. Little ADHD side quest.
We love those.
But yeah, I mean, so it can be kind of muddled, but I think also too, like if you learn a little bit about true boundaries versus requests or weaponizing it at like therapy language and being honest with yourself too, I think can really help um, clarify where you're
well,
coming.
well, that's the hardest part, isn't it? Like the honesty with ourselves. I mean, because one of the things I may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but like one of the things that I know, like you helped me see, like in our therapy work together, was the ways that my behavior, the ways that I was responding to like really challenging situations in my life and in my family, was very manipulative of the other people. Right? It was trying to set those wrong kinds of boundaries, which is trying to establish a kind of control over the situation and a control over the other person. When exactly as you're saying, like I just have no control over them, right? So I have to let go of that control and figure out what does that boundary actually look like for me in my own behavior, in my own life. Like what do I need to protect? And then how do I establish that kind of boundary that is not trying to manipulate the other person, that is not trying to control the other person. But to be able to realize that, I think is really challenging. Like, because from my perspective, it just like, no, this is just the right thing. You know, I'm just trying to get us all to not be jerks to each other. Right. But like maybe the other person in that situation is like, they're just going to be a jerk. Like that's just how it is. And so you have to decide, or I had to decide, how then do I, choose or not to interact with this person if that's how they are going to behave. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It does. It does. And as you're talking, like I'm totally thinking of like parenting and,
Mm-hmm.
when you have like, whether it be the toddler being an asshole or teenager being an asshole, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like how
Yes.
you implement that boundary, but with kindness and with love because they're your children, you know? And I just keep thinking about like when my daughter was younger and she was like in the hitting phase and stage, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, we don't hit, stop hitting me, don't hit me. Like it wasn't that. It was, I don't want to be hit. If you're going to hit me again, I'm going to leave the room and I want to spend time with you, and she would, and then I would get up and I would leave and she would be like, wait, that's not what I wanted,
Right.
And
Right.
so
Exactly.
the hitting
Yeah.
stopped. Obviously, we used some other interventions. Like I would give her a pillow. I'm like, if you want to hit, if you're frustrated, here, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
hitting me, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it did work and it
Yeah.
is a stage and it's totally developmentally appropriate, blah, blah. But
Of
it's like,
course. Right.
we're also not going to let them hit us and we're not going to hit them. Well, us, we're not going to hit them
Yeah.
back.
Right. We're not.
We're not. But it's so interesting because it's like, even when it's parenting and we're like showing up for our kids, we even still have a really hard time with the
Yeah.
boundaries. Like either we're passive
Totally.
and we just give in because we're uncomfortable with the dynamic of the whining or the
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or what are people going to think? So we just, fine, sure, here's the tablet, It's like,
Right. Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah.
here's the
We've all
Instagram.
been there.
Yeah. And so it's just so interesting. So yeah, when you were talking, like I was definitely thinking about like the parenting aspect of the boundaries, because that's not a relationship you can just be like, peace out, this
Right.
is not healthy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Totally. Well, and that like there was a really big movement in like 80s and 90s, I guess, in like Christian, particularly evangelical Christian parenting circles, that was basically like you're teaching parents like your children are just little monsters. They're just little filthy sinners And the only way to like properly parent them is to like, I mean, just to have absolute control. I mean, this is a huge thing, Chelsea.
Obedience
Like there,
training, essentially.
yes, exactly. Right. And it was all about like basically like one of the lines that these people would often say is like, you want to like, how do you know that like original sin is true? Like look at a toddler, because they're just the worst humans in the world. It's like, wait, hold on. What are you talking about? Like, no. Like, as you're saying, this is all perfectly developmentally appropriate. Like this is how they're learning to move and interact with the world. Like this is where that teaching of boundaries, emotional regulation, exactly. And this is where that teaching of boundaries is so important. Like if we as parents don't understand those things well, then we're gonna pass those terrible ways that we navigate those things onto those kids, right? And then of course we've got generations of kids who are growing up anxious and depressed and with screens in their faces and all that kind of stuff, because so like we've been fundamentally taught how to parent from so many, and like specifically within Christian circles, we've been taught how to parent from a perspective that says your child is a miniature sinner rather than just like beloved little creature who's going to do some dumb stuff because that's what they're programmed to do. Like it's so sad. Like it is so sad.
Wild. And it's funny, as you're talking about this, like with the youngsters, I'm thinking about this new movement, because you're talking about the movement in the 80s.
Yeah.
There's this new
Right.
movement where now these youngsters are adults. And so there's these
Yes.
parents with adult children, and the adult children are cutting their parents off. They're like canceling their parents.
Yes.
And I saw an article the other day where it's like, are therapists to blame for
I saw that.
culture amongst like adult children and their parents? And it's like, yes, but no. And then there's that question, like, at what point do you say this is a healthy cutoff? Like, this is an unhealthy, unsafe relationship. It's time to cut that parent off. Like, is it abuse, or is it just my parent has like, a personality disorder or whatever?
Yeah, totally. And that's what I mean is like, that's where I think there is just no one size fits all, because it's going to be a different equation for different people based on their identities, based on their family makeup, all of those kinds of things. And not like what is the issue that you're dealing with the parent. Like if I have a hard time, telling, for instance, like young queer people that they need to keep their relationships with their parents when their parents are just telling them that they're, awful people and they're going to hell and they're an abomination. I'm like, yeah, like I wouldn't go to Thanksgiving either, like I don't think I blame you for that, so.
And that kind of goes back to the don't call me that, but if you're going to call me that, I'm going to not say the phone, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Boundary. And in those more complex, I guess, dynamics too, there's a grieving process of grieving, not just the relationship that the parent is choosing to not continue with, right? But there's a grieving process too of what kind of relationship we hoped to have with that parent,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah. No, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. ADHD, sick brain.
No, you're good.
I'm glad you brought up the adult children cutting off their parents, because I think that's a big thing. Like it really is a big thing that's happening right now. And I think, finding like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
I was going to say, I think that's another way where we do weaponize the boundaries, right? It's like our parents aren't behaving or aren't acting in a certain way. And so now we're going to weaponize this boundary setting. So it's like, again, if it's not really a safety thing and it's just, emotionally uncomfortable, we're using it as a shield. We're using it as a weapon.
Totally. Yeah, exactly right. Like I think, again, like if we're talking about, a queer person, people of color who like maybe have blended families, like whatever, like where it is genuinely like unsafe for you to be around those people without experiencing harassment, abuse, those kinds of things. I get it. If it's just like my dad voted for Trump and I don't feel like eating Thanksgiving with him, like, all right, I don't know. Maybe you could work through that a little bit.
Right. Like my mom's self-centered or my dad, absolutely,
totally.
But again, if it's somebody that has physically abused you, if it's somebody that,
Correct.
these types of things, I think it's different. But yeah, I see it a lot where young adults are just so pissed off at their parents for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
They hold them to these like high expectations and cut them off, and I think we sometimes as the children forget about the process that our parents are going through too.
Totally.
There's a whole stage of aging once you pass that 60, 70-year-old threshold too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It makes me think of, Noah Khan, the musician. He has a line in one of his songs. He says, "I'm still angry at my parents for what their parents did to them, but it's a start."
Yeah.
So like slowly recognizing like, oh yeah, like, and there is like generational like trauma that we're dealing with as
Oh
well,
yeah.
right? And
Oh yeah.
so like there's a level of, I think, especially for someone in my position, it's like I also need to develop a level of, as I develop empathy for myself and recognize how all the things about me that I don't like or whatever have been like working on this and that, I can like
Mhm.
start to identify where they've come from and like all of that kind of stuff. Like you start doing that inner work in yourself and you start to get to that place of like self-compassion. I think it
Mhm.
only opens up deeper compassion for other people, right? And so we have to do that with our parents as well, and like with those previous generations as well, is to recognize the ways in which we are products of our environment, right? Like all of those things that have come together in our particular time and place to make us who we are, and to recognize those like I genuinely believe everybody in the world is doing the best they possibly can. I think a lot of us are just pretty ignorant about what we could be doing better, right? Like a lot of us are like, we need a lot more healing to be able to do better, right? Like it really is not as simple as know better, do better, like I wish it were.
It's so
If it
funny because
were,
as you
we'd all be running 10 miles a day and meditating 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like we'd all be
yeah,
doing the good, healthy things. We
correct.
know what's good for us and what's bad for us. That doesn't mean we do it.
Right. 100%. It's funny when you're talking about like the self-compassion and then having compassion for others. And my mom will probably hate me for sharing this like publicly, but I'm going to share it anyway. And
Awesome.
I don't, yeah, I don't remember exactly what age or stage she was in, but she had surpassed the age that her mother passed away at. And that
Mm,
year of, I think her mom died at like 64, 65, somewhere around there. So when that was my mom's birth year, there was a lot of anxiety she was experiencing. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of layers that I probably don't know because again, this is, I was in my own world, but
right.
she was acting funny. She was acting different. She was, and so I think is the moment she said to me, this is the age that my mom died. It was like a light bulb, and that compassion kind of just clicked. That compassion for like on
Yeah.
my side for
Yeah.
her, like, okay, this is why
Right.
you're acting all
Right.
cuckoo crazy.
Right. Exactly.
you
Like
know?
mom needs to go through some stuff too, like, yeah, totally.
Right, right. And
Totally.
so I think again that compassion, having compassion, not necessarily permission for our parents, right? Like
Correct.
not that
Correct.
she treated me like garbage during that stage, but like let's just say she
Yeah.
was. That's
Right.
not permission to do that, but still to tap into that compassion and then have those uncomfortable conversations, not cutting
Mm-hmm.
her off, but saying, "Hey mom, you're acting cuckoo crazy. What's this all
Yeah.
about?" And I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly the dynamics of that, but I do remember her saying, "This is the age that my mom died." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, yeah. Okay. Get it now."
Yeah. No, it changes things. Totally.
It
Totally
does.
right, man.
Does.
Yeah, and I mean, similar. Like, I don't want to say too much because that's not, my own story or whatever. But like, we've had some real challenges in our family with, particularly with addiction, and having to like make really hard decisions about people in our life and how close we keep them to us, right? And multiple family members, and it's really really hard because, and we also like we have 5 kids through adoption, in part because of all of that complicated, not in part because of all of that complicated family stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we have had to constantly make those decisions about like, what do those boundaries look like, and like are they just for us, and then but we also have to consider the kids and like and the other people involved, like because they're whole people as well who deserve like love and all, like compassion and all of those kinds of things, right? So it's just really really complicated, and like life is messy. And so you get into these situations where like, yeah, it'd be really nice if you could just very simply say like, it's this person is good, this person is bad, and so we get the bad people out of our lives. But like, they're just not bad. Like that, it's like, it's not that simple. Like I wish on some level it were that simple to be able to say that is a bad person, they don't belong in my life anymore. Like that is just not the case. They are a person who is still in need of some deep healing, and because of that, like in desperate need for compassion and love and all sorts of things, right? Again, that doesn't mean every single person has to give it to them, or like you have to stay in situations, blah blah blah, all of those things. It
Correct.
doesn't change the fact
And
that
I
they
think
still are worthy and deserving of love.
exactly. And I think too, like that goes back to the boundaries with self. Like we don't have to be those people that are responsible for their healing
Correct.
just
Exactly
because
right.
passionate and understanding of it, right? So again, like those
100%.
boundaries can kind of get blurry, and I think
Yeah.
again because the feelings and the emotions are so multi-dimensional and layered, it's just so much easier. I say easier, it's more simplified to just be like, well, I'm protecting my peace.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. We cannot hold everyone's hand and walk them through, every healing process and all of that. But there
No.
are people in our lives, and at times that we will have to hold some hands, and sometimes it would be really hard and really uncomfortable while we hold those hands,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so there is like the wisdom is just is being able to discern which hands are ours to hold, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Absolutely. Um So yeah, I mean, I guess as far as like boundaries and learning and knowing like how do I know? How do I know if I'm upholding a boundary? How do I know if I'm weaponizing it, right? I think really just kind of like asking yourself like kind of like those questions that I had said at the beginning, is this coming from self-respect or self-protection? Is it creating safety or is it creating distance? And is this an invitation for a healthier relationship? Is it a way or is it a way to win, right? Am I trying
Yeah.
to fight and win a battle or am I really just trying to repair this relationship?
Yeah, that way to win one, man. That's such a big one because it's so easy in the heat of that stuff. Like the argument, it just becomes about winning, and it's just like, and none of that is helpful, man. Like there's been so many times in the past, thankfully not anytime recently, where like in the throes of some of these conflicts, I'm on the phone with someone and we're just going back and forth, or we're just like screaming at like you hang out the phone, like what was the point of that? Like what? That helped literally nothing, like it's just me trying to win and like them trying to win over me. Like this is so deeply unhelpful, right? And it just makes everything worse, not only in the situation, but like for you internally as well. It just
Yeah.
makes you even more miserable.
It
Like
really
letting
does.
go of that winning game altogether.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
freedom, baby.
And it's so funny because as a therapist, I see this big, like in big headlights with two populations. One is couples where they're
Yeah.
fighting against each other, trying to win. And I always say to them, but if there's a loser, then you both lose.
Yeah. Boom.
Right?
That's
Like you
it.
either both need to win or you both need to lose. So if there's a winner and a loser, you both lose. And so once they kind of get on board with that mindset, that I need to win kind of thing fades into the distance. And then the other one in big bright lights is parent and children, like little children. And
Yeah.
one of the themes that keeps coming up recently in therapy with my parents and my couples for couples work for children for parenting stuff, but is you can't have ice cream for breakfast. And this model comes with holding boundaries with kindness. So if you had
Yeah.
a child at, 8 o'clock in the morning, mommy, I want ice cream, daddy, I want ice cream, and is demanding it, you're not going to be like, oh, honey, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Here's your ice cream. And you're also not going to be like, that's a fucking dumb idea. Why would you want ice cream? Like, you're not going to you know what I mean? You're not going to be
You
passive. You're
idiot.
not going to be aggressive. You're not gonna, you're going to hold an accountable boundary, a healthy boundary where it's not about I'm winning. It's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the respect. It's about the boundary. It's about the values, the ethics, whatever. And it's like, okay, baby, we're not going to have ice cream for breakfast. Maybe we can have it after dinner tonight or our Sunday fun day or whatever it is. But you're
hmm
not going to like get into this battle of control or power. I don't know. That
Yeah.
just comes.
But it's hard not to get drawn into that battle sometimes, and like
Really.
that's where all of the, I think going back a few episodes, like thinking about nervous system regulation, right? Like that's where that stuff becomes so important, is to be able to give your body just that reset and to not to respond in the heat of the moment, from that heightened place. We live so much of our lives in that kind of alert, heightened place that the more we can do, like whether it's meditation or the craniosacral therapy or whatever other
Prayer.
things that, yeah, prayer. Yeah, I guess that's good.
I always say
Listen, I
prayer and
listen.
meditation, right? Because like it,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is kind of the same thing,
totally.
It's
Yeah.
just if you have
Yeah,
the
and for me, there's really no distinction because I practice like largely contemplative forms of prayer, right? But for a lot of people, there is a difference. So no, it's a wonderful specification there. But yeah,
yeah,
that's why all of that is so important. I mean, among many other reasons, but to be able to calm our bodies and to help us to respond from a different place where we can realize the absolute futility of those like, am I winning or losing kind of games, right? Because exactly as you said, if anyone loses, we all lose, period. That's beautiful.
So I mean, we're at a good kind of ending point here. And maybe next time we can talk about nervous system and how to kind of like calm in those heightened states when you're trying to
Heck yeah.
implement the boundary.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
so, so that being said, thanks for spending this time with us on Unorthodoxy.
If something in today's conversation resonated, we invite you to sit with it. Not fix it, not rush it, just notice what it stirred.
Yeah. Because healing isn't about certainty. It's about curiosity, compassion, and staying connected to yourself.
And you do not have to have it all figured out to be doing meaningful work. And we hope that you will like and subscribe and share and all the things.
Yes. We will hope to see you next time.
Bye.